Welcome back for another preview video. Very excited today to present to you a game that has been printed all the way back from 2016, if I remember correctly, in a brand new version from Phalanx. The game is called Hands in the Sea, and there is a whole quote from a Carthaginian commander behind the title of this game, because it's supposed to be at the peak of the hostilities between Rome and Carthage during the First Punic War. It was such a control of the seas from the Carthaginian navy that it was said that the Romans, probably as a joke, but it was said that the Romans were afraid to even wash their hands in the sea. So it's a game with a strong title, and I really like when there is a story behind the title, and there's a story behind the game, and this goes all the way back to the First Punic War, between the eternal battle between the two superpowers of that era at the Mediterranean Sea during the ancient age. It's the war between Rome and Carthago. It's a game about deck building using very clever ideas with it's a war game essentially between two players, with simulation, with movement from point to point, with a lot of thematic ties, with ideas like in supply, so you can launch things from you have to always check about if something is in supply, and that makes sense because supply is an important thing, of course, in the war, and maybe when we play games we don't really realize that unless you play heavy strategy games or really carefully crafted simulations. But I think this game really manages to bring this supply aspect even from the ancient wars in a very thematic and realistic way into the game. Now I'm rushing ahead giving my opinion for the game because I really liked it and I enjoyed it, and it was very special and unique for me. I had a great experience with the game. I haven't played the first version, I have to be clear here, so it's my impressions is clearly from this version, from the advanced prototype that I got from Phalanx to try the game. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed both the era, the ancient wartime, and also the mechanisms of the game, mainly around clever deck building and the clever use of your tactics on this tug of war, in essence, between the two sides until one achieves victory. Now join me at the table. I'll show you how the game works in practice. I'll explain all the rules. I'll be very scholastic. I'll add the timestamps in the whole duration of the video so that you can quickly navigate to specific things in the video if you want to check the rules, the actions, the components, the winning conditions, etc., so you can go directly to what it's important to you. And then you'll join me back up at the end of this video for a final wrap-up and opinion from my first impressions from the couple of games I had from the game so far, and why it really clicked for me. And I think it's something that I would really enjoy playing as a versus, as one of my favorite versus games from the ancient era. A war game that it's cleverly crafted and very, very well designed. So let's see how it plays first of all. Hands in the Sea is a two-player deck-building war game on the First Punic War between Rome and Carthage, 264 to 241 BC. Each player has a starting deck of cards they use to perform various actions, up to 2 per round. Actions range from colonization to naval movement to battle, with most activity centered in and around Sicily and Sardinia, Corsica. Players may also purchase additional cards from their own custom decks or from a set of neutral cards that either player may purchase from. There are also strategy cards that each player can purchase, one max, that give the owning player some special advantage. The game is played over the course of several rounds, up to a maximum of 12 that is, and at the end of each turn, players resolve random events, collect income and score victory points. There are several paths to victory, ranging from simply having the highest score at the end of the game, to capturing the opposing player's capital, and so on. Inspired by a few acres of snow, a game featured that has several elements, including naval battles. It has land battles, cavalry superiority, mercenaries, field battles, sieges, manpower, strategy cards, random events, and so on. All sorts of different things are infused in this new version of Hand in the Sea, published from Phalanx Game. The name of the game is based on a quote from a Carthaginian commander who claimed at the outbreak of hostilities that the Carthaginian control of the seas was such high that the Romans wouldn't even dare to wash their hands in the sea. So before doing anything else, let's familiarize ourselves with the components of the game. First of all, we have, as you see in front of you already, set up for the game to begin. We have the game board. It has the focus of the theater of war, and it has the different pieces already on board, which are going to be part of the setup and explained later. Furthermore, each player has one player board, one for the Roman player and one for the Carthaginian player. Obviously the colors are red for the Roman and blue for the Carthaginian player. We have 8 dice. Again, these are prototype dice. I don't know if it's going to be a final production decision, but at least in the rules you can see that there are 4 red and 4 blue for the respective sides. In any case, suppose this is a prototype, therefore this is prone to change. We have 18 city tokens, 10 Roman with the red and 8 Carthaginian with the blue. I've done a very detailed separate unboxing prototype of these components, so you can go there and see how the components look in detail, but just to show you up close the amount of detail that there is in those minis, they're really nice. Also we have 19 Roman and 18 Carthaginian towns, which have smaller size, as you can see. There's an obvious difference between towns like this one and cities, and we have one more for Syracuse, which is yellow because it's independent. In addition, we have 8 fortification tokens. These are these tokens here. They have walls that go around, and you can put them around the other pieces to indicate the fortification. There are 5 in total, and these serve as a supply at the beginning of the game. Moving forward, we have a series of tokens color coded for each side. We have these tokens. These are the two-sided battle round tokens. This is a very nice, unique feature of the game, which we're going to circle back once we explain the rules. So we have one red for the Roman player and one blue for the Carthaginian player. We have the fate token. This is a fate token. It's two-sided, one blue side and one red side for each of the sides in the game. We have the fleet tokens starting at the harbor for each side, one blue and one red respectively. We also have the land combat strength tokens, which depict a sword, again one red and one blue. There are 6 two-sided maintenance cost tokens ranging from the values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numerical values with the appropriate color for each side. And then last but not least, we have of course the currency. We have 10 gold value, 3 tokens, and 20 value 1 silver tokens. These are these money tokens that you have here. Also each side starts with some coins from setup. The last thing that I want to mention is the variety of cards that we have in the game. Just to show you briefly some of them, we're going to go more into the detail and the anatomy of the cards, but you can see that we have first of all the location cards, which have this back, and you see the color. For the Roman player it's red, and for the respective deck for the starting cards for the Carthaginian player these are blue. Okay, they have different locations. Okay, each player starts with their starting cards in their deck with the S depicted here. Same goes for the blue player, the Carthaginian. Then we have the rest of the Empire cards. There are 46 in total, 20 Roman. And this is a face-up deck because you can pick it up and select from that. And you know it's Roman again because it has the red banner. So this is the Empire deck for the Roman player and the respective Empire deck for the Carthaginian player. A total of 20 and 20. There are 6 neutral cards here for the mercenaries with the white banner at the bottom. And we have a campaign card, which again goes at the bottom of the Carthaginian player. To indicate the end of the turn. Okay, and this purple card. We'll explain how this works in a sec. And the last thing I want to mention is we have the strategy cards. There is a variety of strategy cards. You see there is a deck here ready for setup with 3 in the market. And again, here is going to be, as I explained, art. This is a work in progress, but here is how the strategy deck and the cards look like. Last thing that we have is the deck of the event cards, which are these cards here. And you can find event cards which have this nice art. By the way, I like the yellow and black, which we see also in the event cards on the back of the decks, on the player boards, even on the map, because for me, being Greek, in nationality is Greek, it really resembles to me the ancient pottery that was part of this era, and the vases, etc. It's really, really nice, and I think it's very, very thematic. So the last thing that we have is we have the remaining of the location cards. So besides the Roman and the Carthaginian, there are the remaining neutral territories, which have green for Corsica and Sardinia and yellow for Sicily, top banner, as you can see there. So there you have it. These are all the components of the game. I have to mention, which is really nice, there are two play raids, one for each player. In one side you have all the card symbols explained in detail, and this is fantastic. Very good material as well. We have the reminders for the campaign sequence and game condition, and the major things that we need to remember in the game. And then at the back there are some additional rules as a reminder, linked with merchant, with bribery, with cavalry raid, with attacking a location, and so on. This is very useful, one for each side, and this makes it very, very easy, because you have all the useful information combined and summarized in one card for each side. So there you have it. These are all the components of the game. Now let's proceed to setup. First of all, there are two empires in the game, and this has to be clear already, but even just from the color you can see that you have Rome, which is red, and everything red belonging to Rome, and we have Carthage, which is blue, and everything blue is belonging to Carthage. The first thing we do is we place the board in the middle of the table, as you can see in front of you, and following that, players either select Rome or Carthage and take their place on their chosen side of the board, and place the player boards in front of them. The next thing that we do is players take all of their locations and empire cards with a starting symbol on them, either a red S or a blue S, shuffle them and place them face down in their own draw deck box on their player board. Each player's starting location cards match the red circle or blue circle location on the map. Rome takes all the red border location cards plus yellow border location cards for Messana and Catana. You can see them here, the yellow ones, plus all the red ones which belong to Rome. You can see that they all have the S at the bottom right side of the card, which stands for the red S, which stands for the starting locations, and the same goes for the two yellow ones. So these are going to be the starting location. We need to shuffle them thoroughly and place them face down on the corresponding draw deck of the player board. We do the same for the Carthaginian player. So Carthage takes Carthaginian player. Carthage takes all the blue banner cards like this, that they have the blue circle at the bottom right side of their cards, plus two additional, one for Lily Bowen and one for Panormus. They also have the blue banner there. We shuffle this deck, and we also need to put an additional card in the deck, one for Karalis, which is a green border location card for them. So let's see which one is this. So they also add Karalis, which has an S starting together with the two previous ones I mentioned. Okay, so we shuffle the respective deck thoroughly. And the additional step is that the Carthaginian player puts the last campaign card at the bottom of the draw deck after shuffling. So they need to go at the bottom of the deck after they have finished shuffling, and they put it there on the respective player board for their draw deck in a similar way. Keep in mind that the remaining empire cards do not need to be shuffled. Okay, the remaining ones for the Roman player have a red banner, and the remaining ones for the Carthaginian player similarly have a blue banner, and they don't need to be shuffled. You just place them on a deck and place them face up on the empire deck on the left, as you see in front of you, for each of the sides. Next thing that we do is we take this deck, the strategy deck, we shuffle it thoroughly, and we place 3 cards on the 3 designated spots from this deck face up. This is a face down draw deck, the strategy deck with a purple background, and it says strategy deck on the back as well. We draw 3 cards and we place them on these 3 dedicated slots for strategy cards. Having done that, we shuffle the event deck, which is the one with a yellow back, as you can see there. We shuffle it thoroughly and we place it face down on the designated space on the player board, on the main board, and then next to it on the event discard we place the fate token sitting here. So that's the next step, and moving from there we go here. We find all the remaining cards with a white banner at the bottom. These are the neutral cards with a white banner border, as you call it. We do not shuffle them, we just place them face up on the designated space next to the board. Players can inspect this deck at any time during the course of the game. And the last thing that we do is we go here, we take the remaining of the neutral locations with a yellow or green border. This is this deck here. This doesn't need to be shuffled, we just place them here, and players again can at any time during the turn pick up and examine those 2 respective decks. The next step is for the Roman player to place a red town token in each red location except Roma and Neapolis. So each location with a red circle takes one of these town tokens, and then we have the exception of Roma, which is the capital, and Neapolis, which have also the dot in the middle. They have different symbol, as you can see. They instead take a city token in order to begin the game. The remaining tokens for the city and towns for the Roman player are placed next to their player board to make a supply. Similarly, the Carthaginian player places a blue town token on each blue location that you have on the map with one symbol like that, with the exception of Carthago and Utica, which have specifically a dot in the middle. These ones are indicated as such because they're going to start the game with 2 city tokens instead of town tokens. Okay, so once we've done that, then the last thing that we need to do is we need to place Syracuse token on the respective Syracuse location. This is the Syracuse town, a yellow token for that matter. And once we've done that, since it's independent, both players will place their victory point token on the 0 space which goes around the board. These are the victory point tokens. We use them to track victory points around the main board, and this is a victory point track respectively. Both players place their fleet token in the respective home port indicated by a warship pre-printed. Okay, for the Carthago, it's just next to the Carthago for the Carthaginian player, and for the Roman player it's next to Rome. These are the fleet tokens and they start the game as such. Following that, we go to the pillage track, which is this one over here. At the bottom of the map you can see the pillage track. Each player has a pillage token marker. They start at 0. On the top is a pillage track going all the way up to 8, and they will be placing their track token there. Last but not least, we place the fortification tokens in the general supply next to the board, and we also make piles with the currency next to the main board. Keep in mind that this is silver. We need to take silver and give it to the players for their starting supply. Rome starts with 5 silver and Carthage starts with 6 silver respectively next to their player boards. As last steps of setup, the Carthaginian player places their blue warship token marker on the 2 spot of the respective track on the side of the board, while the Roman player just keeps the red warship token below. They start with 0, while Carthaginian player starts with 2 for this track respectively as part of setup. Then both players place their land combat round tokens, land combat strength tokens and dice next to their player board respectively. These are these tokens here that you can see. These are kept next to their player boards for easy access, and we do the same with the dice, the main dice of the game. Last but not least, we place the round token on the number 1, Latin number 1, on the round track, which is here, and this track indicates the value of the round that we are playing the game. Each player then draws 5 cards from the top of their draw deck to create their starting hand, and players are now ready to start the game. Ending the game. The game can end immediately with automatic victory or by fulfilling game ending conditions. First, automatic victory takes place when one of the following occurs. Either Rome wins immediately if either a land combat is won in Carthago or Rome settles Carthago. Carthage wins immediately if either a land combat is won in Roma or Carthage settles Roma. A player wins immediately if they have at least 25 victory points, lead over their opponent at the end of resolving the campaign card, end of round. A player wins immediately if they control every location in Sicily. And a player wins immediately in any of those conditions fulfilled. In the case of a land combat, it is not necessary for a town token to be placed in the location to trigger the victory condition. Secondly, the game ending conditions are fulfilled when one of the following occurs at the end of each other player's turn. The first portion is immediate automatic victory. The second will happen at the end of the player's turn. A player has placed all of their town or city tokens on the board, then at the end of this player we have an endgame triggering. A player has captured 10 points worth of town and city tokens from their opponent. A town token is worth 1 point, a city token, the larger one, is worth 2 points. A player has 8 prestige points on the personal prestige board, which is on their track. Each player is tracking prestige on the personal board, outside of the main board. A player has scored at least 90 victory points. 12 rounds have passed, and the peace event causes the game to end. All of these I have just mentioned, they are end-game conditions, and when the game ending conditions have been met and there is a land combat underway, the game cannot end. The players continue performing whatever actions they wish, except that neither player may start a new land or naval combat elsewhere. The game ends immediately once the last remaining land combat has been resolved, before any actions are played. In a situation where the game has not ended due to an ongoing battle, you remove the campaign card from the game and continue playing until the last land combat ends. If the Carthaginian player runs out of cards at this time and needs to draw a card, reshuffle the discard pile and draw. But since the campaign card has been removed, you do not resolve an event, score victory points, collect income, or cycle a new strategy card, which are part of the end of turn. We will find out more about that later. In any case, when the game ends due to triggering a game ending condition, each player tallies their end game victory points, which are added to their running victory points in total to see the final total sum. Both players add, in addition to what they have scored throughout the course of the game, 1 victory point each friendly control developed location in supply, 1 victory point for each prestige point, 1 victory point for each captured token, except Syracuse, 2 victory points for each captured city, 2 victory points if the player owns 3 or more locations in Corsica and Sardinia, whether or not they are in supply. Let me show you on the map. This refers over here, okay? In addition, 2 victory points if the player owns 5 victory points if the player owns 7 or more locations in Sicily, in this area, whether or not are in supply. And last but not least, victory points of all captured enemy starting locations, whether or not they are in supply. The player who has more victory points in total will be the winner, and in case of a tie, the Carthaginian player is the winner. Core game concepts. First of all, let's start with the game board and the player board respectively, so we can see the breakdown. The board consists of a series of connected locations across 4 regions. The regions are, first of all, we have Italy on top there. Then we have Africa over here at the bottom. Then we have Sicily over here. And then we have Corsica and Sardinia over here. There are also 4 zones, each one adjacent to one of those regions pre-mentioned. So this is the sea zone around Sardinia, Corsica. This is the sea zone around Sicily. And this is the sea zone around Italy. And this is the one around Africa. We also have 2 home ports, one for each of the powers, one at Carthago and one at Rome over here. In addition to that, we have 5 tracks on the game board. Let's familiarize ourselves with the tracks. First of all, we have at the top of the map over here, we have the round track, which counts the rounds all the way up to 12. Then at the bottom of the track we have this one on the upper side, which is called the Pillage track. We have one token from each side starting at 0, and the Pillage track goes all the way up to 8. In addition to that, we have two land combat tracks, one at the bottom here for the Carthaginian player and one at the top just above the round track for the Roman player. And last but not least, we have the victory point track, which goes around the main map. The player board contains prestige as a track which comes at the top of the player board. We have a marker, starts at 0, and we count prestige, which goes all the way up to 9, and this is for each of the player boards. In addition, we have the Warship Empire deck. We have the Warship track, which goes here, and you track your warships track over here. And then we have locations. We have the Srategy Card location, which is over here. We have the Empire deck, which is here, the Draw deck, which is here, the Discard pile, and a spot for the reserve over here. There is explanation beneath each of those deck card holders or discard card holders, but in any case everything is going to make sense really soon how they work, so just to familiarize ourselves with the player boards of each player. Now let's talk about locations on the board. As you can see, we have different locations, places essentially on the board, and if a location is in supply, it allows the player who controls it to use the corresponding location card to their benefit. Locations on the board are marked with red, blue, white and yellow circles. At the start of the game, red circles denote Roman control and blue Carthaginian control respectively. Locations with white circles are initially uncontrolled, and the only yellow location is Syracuse, and it's considered enemy controlled for both players. We have different types of characteristics of locations. So control neutral white and enemy locations with one circle are worth 1 victory point. For example, this one, that one, or even this one. Okay, you see the legend here, it says 1 victory point. By the way, this triangle is a victory point worth icon. To settle these locations, the player must spend a card with a symbol containing this icon over here. These are the cards symbol that is needed. This card is needed with this symbol in order to settle a location. It can also be used to develop a town, and it's necessary to purchase a warship and non-mercenary heavy infantry card, but this is later. For the purpose of settling a location, the player must play one card with this symbol. We have double circle controlled neutral white, yellow, and blue and white and red double circle spots like this one, which are worth 2 victory points. Okay, so you have two circles, one within the other, so this is worth 2 victory points for the neutral Syracuse. This is worth 2 victory points. Okay, this again 1, but this is worth 2, and so on. Okay, so 2 circles denote 2 victory point of worth once controlled. We have locations with this symbol. You see the sword pointing upwards. Again, for a clear depiction of all symbols, you can see that in the play raid. Okay, but also on the legend here, this symbol, which you can also see in Syracuse, it's a defense bonus supply point. A location with this symbol are supply points and 1 additional strength during settling and setting the initial strength of the defender in a land combat. Okay, so it gives +1 defense bonus. 1 additional strength during setting the initial strength of the defender when you have land battles. Then we have locations which have this icon here, the triangle, the black triangle with yellow border. Controlled neutral and enemy locations with a VP bonus are worth 1 additional VP for each triangle next to the location's name. Okay, so this is additionally an additional victory point. keep that in mind. Then we have names of locations between those symbols. They look like waves. So we have one for Roma. This is the capital of Roman player. When conquered by the Carthaginian player, the game immediately ends with their victory. And we have one more for the Carthago city. Again, it has two these borders, so it says Carthago between those two borders, and again it denotes the capital of the Carthaginian player. When conquered by the Roman player, the game immediately ends with their victory. Last but not least, we have the symbol of the home port of each player. If I remove the fleet token, you can see the symbol icon, the yellow fleet, which represents the home port of each player respectively. So everything is clear, everything is straightforward, and you also have a legend on the map so that you don't forget anything. Red and blue dots indicate the setup placement of Roman and Carthaginian cities respectively. Okay, you can see the dots in the middle. For the big pieces, the cities. These dots are irrelevant later in the game, they're just for setup. Then we have the two yellow circles, one within the other, for Syracuse. When a player captures Syracuse, it can be used as a supply point. Its town token is removed if it's captured. Until then, it's considered enemy controlled territory for both players. The town token itself is not worth a victory point at the end of the game, and winning a land combat at Syracuse does not grant you a prestige point. Neither player may trace supply to Syracuse while it is neutral or uncontrolled. Okay, or neutral. Though either player may trace through Syracuse if it is uncontrolled. Another player may raid or pillage Syracuse while it is neutral, and a player may attack Syracuse the same way that he would attack any other enemy location. However, your opponent may not reinforce the defense of Syracuse, nor may your opponent attack Syracuse if a land combat is already taking place there. Okay. Historically, Rome and Syracuse fought briefly before Syracuse sought terms and then aided the Romans in their war effort. So that's about explaining how Syracuse works in terms of map and explanation also. So we have cities and we have towns and cities. Each player has a limited number of tokens representing towns and cities. This imposes a limit on the number of locations that can be settled and developed. If a player develops and plays his last city token, it triggers the game ending condition. So what about control? If there is no player's town or city token on a location, that location is uncontrolled or neutral if Syracuse. If you have your town or city token in the location, you control that location. If you take control of a location, take the matching location card from the location cards that were set to the side at the start of the game, or from an opponent if that opponent lost the land combat in this location, and place it on top of your discard pile. So this is very important to remember because it's part of the gameplay. So controls is indicated by the tokens, and then if you take control, you place your own token there, but you also need to take the respective card either from the deck aside or from the other player if they previously controlled it. And what about sea zones? Sea zones are used to move your fleets between them, and there are 4 zones on the map, each corresponding to a given region. We have the Italy, as I said, the Sicily, here, the Corsica and Sardinia, and the Africa sea zone there. In addition to that, there are 2 home ports to the board for each side of the conflict, marked with a warship icon. A player's fleet can never enter the opponent's home port. All coastal locations in a region are considered adjacent to the corresponding sea zone. All sea zones are adjacent to 2 other sea zones. It's important to know that Italy in Africa and Sicily and Corsica and Sardinia are considered non-adjacent. Just to also show it visually, Africa and Italy are not adjacent, and the same goes for Corsica, Sardinia and Sicily. These sea zones are not adjacent. Okay? The majority of locations in the game are coastal locations. Only Roma, Nuoro, Enna and Hippana are non-coastal locations. Also note that all coastal locations in Italy are in the Italy sea zone. All coastal locations in Sicily are in the Sicily sea zone, and so on. A sea zone can be friendly controlled when you have a fleet in the sea zone and your opponent does not have a fleet in that sea zone. Enemy control when an enemy fleet is in the sea zone and you do not have a fleet in that sea zone. And control when neither or both players have fleet in the sea zone. So this is how sea zones work in the game. There are 4 supply points in the game, and now it's a good time to talk about supply. So 4 supply games in the game. We have Roma, we have Carthago, we have Syracuse, and we have Lilybaeum. These locations can also be identified by this symbol with a defense supply bonus that I mentioned earlier next to them. In order to use a location card for an action, you must control that location. For example, have a token there, and the location must be in supply. For example, you must be able to trace a line of supply to the supply point. A location can trace a line of supply over any number of land connections and across any number of sea zones except for those that are enemy controlled. Supply can be traced through uncontrolled locations, friendly or uncontrolled sea zones, and locations where land combat is taking place. But you may not combine a supply path across both the sea zone and the straits. When establishing supply for purpose of initiating or enforcing a land combat, the attacker needs only trace supply to a friendly or neutral location adjacent to that location being attacked or to the location under attack itself. The defender must still trace supply to the location under attack itself in order to reinforce it. An out of supply location card may not be used to meet the requirements of any other card or action. For example, it cannot be added to a merchant or trader action, and it cannot be used to pillage, block or raid, or initiate a naval combat. You cannot reinforce an out of supply location that you control, nor raid from it. You do not collect income from an out of supply location, nor do you score victory points for it when resolving a campaign card. At the end of the game, you do not score victory points for an out of supply location except for capture enemy starting locations. A location card is effectively a dead card into your deck until its location is back in supply. However, an out of supply location card may be discarded but in reserve or returned to the Empire deck. So this is very important because immediately you can understand the importance of supply. This is something really thematically as well. Okay, we're talking about the ancient world, so supply is very straightforward. It's also in modern world, supply is important, but sometimes we can think of different ways because supply can be executed in numerous ways through modern technology. But in the ancient world, supply is straightforward. You need to have access, clear, obvious access to that location in order to supply it. And this is very important because otherwise the card itself is not useful at all. Now let's talk about the straits. Supply may not be traced more than 2 spaces across the straits of Messana in either direction. And this is very important to remember. At the start of the game, Rome can trace supply by land from Rhegium to Messana, Tyndaris and Katana. If Carthage has control of Messana, they could trace supply from Messana to Rhegium, Tempsa and Thuri. So really important because they have a special role, the straits, and this really dictate how the supply extends through the straits. Again, I want to highlight this, that the Carthaginian player may still trace supply to Carthago, Lilybaeum, even if they are uncontrolled, and likewise the Roman player may still trace supply to Roma, even if it is uncontrolled. Now, let's talk about cards. There are 4 different types of cards. We have Location Empire, which are these cards, this is the back of them, Event cards, and Strategy cards. In addition to that, there is 1 campaign card in the game which goes at the bottom of the draw deck of the Carthaginian player. We have a variety of card symbols, but most cards contain text and symbols, and the text on the card will explain the action or actions that can be carried out by the card. The symbol vary in the use, and it's explained both in the rulebook but also on this very useful collection of card symbols. So briefly to see how some of them work. This symbol with a horse, cards with this symbol allow you to use a land connection, while the one with the fleet with the ship cards with this symbol allow you to use a sea connection. They also can be used to reinforce a land combat in a coastal location. The 1 sword card pointing out this symbol. Cards with this symbol can be used in land combat. Each symbol on a card counts as 1 strength point. Then we have this symbol, 2 crossing swords, a grey and a red. Cards with this symbol count as 1 extra strength point if you are the defender, while this symbol, a blue dark sword crossing a yellow sword. Cards with this symbol count as 1 extra strength point if you are the attacker. Then we have this symbol. Cards with this symbol can earn amount of silver equal to the number shown on the symbol itself, so it will be a numerical value. We already seen the symbol. Cards with this symbol can be played to settle a location. It can also be used to develop a town and, if necessary, to purchase a warship and non-mercenary heavy infantry card. We have the card with the vase. These cards with this symbol can be used in conjunction with the merchant to earn 2 silver per card played. And then we have this symbol with a helmet. Cards with this symbol are leader cards, while the symbols with the horse head are cards which are cavalry cards. A cavalry card is a unit. Then we have the symbols with a shield. Cards with this symbol are light infantry cards. A light infantry card is again a unit. We have the round shield, that is. We have the cards with the square Roman shield. Cards with this symbol are heavy infantry cards. A heavy infantry card is a unit. We have cards with this small red dot. Cards with this symbol in the top left corner of a card under the unit type symbol indicate a card which is mercenary unit and can be the target of a bribery action, so they can be bribed. The ones with a large red symbol, cards with this symbol allow you to perform a bribery action, while the ones with a grey large circle allow you to block a bribery action, so a response to these cards essentially. We have the cards with this symbol, which are symbol allow you to perform a cavalry raid action, and these allow you to block respectively a cavalry raid action. This symbol crossing spears, cards with this symbol allow you to block a pillage action. Then we have, as we've seen, cards with these target symbols, Roman red and Carthaginian blue, which are starting deck as I explained. Last but not least, we have the event cards with this symbol indicate a player must collect all discarded event cards and shuffle them back in the entire event deck to create again a full event deck. And last, we have the question mark cards with the symbol, which are alternate events. So these are all the symbols in the game, and as you can understand, these become very trivial after a couple of turns. We have the location cards. Location cards serve primarily as a resource generator, and the resources they generate are used to perform many of the available actions. Locations provide the means of transport, acquiring income and colonies, and developing your militia and navy, as well as a starting point to launch attacks. The location cards are more or less the engine that drives most of the actions over the course of the game. If you lose a location on the board due to cavalry raid or conquest, and your opponent does not elect to settle it upon victory, the location is out of supply, or the location is under attack, then its corresponding location card is effectively a dead card into your deck until you either recapture the location, the land combat ends, you re-establish supply, or you remove the card from your deck. Let's see the anatomy of those cards. We have, first of all, the name of the location, Temsa or Thapsus. We have the color of the region in which the location is located, in this case red for Roman or blue for Carthaginian, but we've seen also we have yellow and green locations. The number of victory points this location provides is indicated over here within the triangle. Remember, the triangle is the victory point symbol, so this provides 1 victory point, this provides another victory point. We have the selection of board with a section of the board with this location, which is encircled by a white dashed line, and other locations that are connected with this location. So you see this city here with a dashed circle, it's Themsa, while this one is Thapsus. And in addition to that, we have additional lines connected to this location. Land connections are black, like from here to here. Sea connections are white, like from here to here, or from here to here. These are sea connections. We have also the S, which is a starting symbol for your starting cards. You start the game with these locations from either side. Then we have the card's number over here for reference, and we have the card's symbol that you can use. This is over here, the symbol, the different symbols it has. So we've seen the symbols before, okay, what they do. Here is an example of symbols you have at the bottom of the card. In addition, the color for each location card corresponds to the region on the map in order to aid you finding it. So red is for Italy, blue is for Africa, yellow is for Sicily, and green is for Corsica and Sardinia. There is only a single card for each location, and the player controlling that location will have the corresponding location card in their possession. When you capture a location controlled by your opponent, they must give you that card no matter where it is, in their hand, reserve, draw deck, discard pile, or empire deck. If the card is taken from the draw deck, reshuffle that deck immediately. So these are the location cards. But now let's move to the different type of cards that we have in the game, and these are empire cards. So these are empire cards. Empire cards comprise several different types of cards. Many have a military function, such as infantry or cavalry. Other cards enhance your available actions or could be used to harm your opponent in some way. You need to tailor the cards in your deck to suit your objectives. If you wish to develop your town quickly or build warship, then it will be helpful to have more cards with the head symbol. This one, the settle. If you want to focus on raiding your opponent towns and cities, then you will need to have more symbols with the raid symbol, which is again this one. So based on the strategy and your approach, you need to tailor in getting more of these cards, and keep in mind that you have access to the whole empire deck on your side to acquire from. Let's see the anatomy of those cards. We have the name of the card in title in capital letters. Then we have the cost of the card. The cost is on the top right side of the card, so 3 in this case, 4 in this case, in silver of course that is. We have the type of a unit, for example, this is a type of a unit, and this is a type of a unit. We have the main action card, the main actions that the card can perform, and these are with icons here. We have the additional actions a card can perform, and these are typically within the text or below. We have the card's number, similarly, which is unique. And then we have the color of the side of the conflict the card belongs to, and you can see that you can have either red, Roman, blue, Carthaginian, or even white for neutral mercenaries, that they look like that. And they have a similar function. In addition, the color to their color, red or blue, Roman and Carthaginian cards are divided into 3 layouts to indicate their faction. So it can be either this type of layout, this type of layout, or that type of layout. Players may only use empire cards with a color that match their side's color. White cards are neutral empire cards that can be drafted and used by either player. We have strategy cards like this one in front of you. Strategy cards are unique as they do not go into your deck. Instead, you place them on your player board. When you purchase a strategy card, it does not go into your discard pile, and it's never shuffled into your draw deck. Strategy card is placed face up in the strategy card box to your player board. It provides you with a special permanent ability as long as you have it on your player board. Let's see quickly the anatomy. The color of this side of here or here, that's the color of the side of the conflict that they may buy this card. The second thing that we can focus is the maintenance cost if playing with a Fortuna expansion rules, which is this here. It has a small green circle in here, for example. Respectively, the normal circle, the large gray circle with a numerical value here, this is the cost of the card. Then you have the card's number over there. You have the card's abilities, which are typically here, what they do. And then you have the name of the card itself, which is here. Certain strategy cards can only be purchased by a specific side. These cards are marked with the color of the side of the conflict. That means cards with a red banner here or here can only be purchased by the Roman player. Respectively, blue banner here or here can be purchased by the Carthaginian player, while purple cards, like this one you see in front of you has purple banner, may be purchased freely by either player. You may never have more than one single strategy card in any time, and if you already have a strategy card and you wish to purchase another one, you must first discard the current strategy card, which requires an action to do so. Again, the location for this is on your player board, and it goes here, and you can only have maximum of one as indicated on the player board itself. one more type of card that we have, that is the event cards. Event cards represent, and again to show you the back of the event card, this is like that. Okay, so event cards represent either what possibly happened or what could have happened at the time of this conflict. Your ability to overcome various disasters during the course of the game will be crucial to your success. Let's see the anatomy of the cards. We have the name, the title. Then in the middle we have a series of dice with colors. This is the distribution of results of a die. Then we have the effect of the card itself. Then we have a reshuffle icon, if any. That means that all event cards need to be reshuffled to create a new deck. Then we have the card's number indicated on the card. And that concludes all the components in the anatomy of the event card. An event happens at the end of the turn when a Carthaginian player draws the campaign card. The top card from the event deck is flipped over and its effects are resolved. Most events only affect a single player, and a die must be rolled to determine which player is affected. An event card with, for example, this means that for a result of 1, 2, 3 or 4 it will affect the Carthaginian player, where a result of 5 or 6 in this example will affect the Roman player. In some cases the event is not applicable to one or both players. In this case there may be an alternate penalty. If there is no alternate penalty listed, then we ignore and we discard the event. It's important that if event card has the reshuffle symbol, as I mentioned earlier, in the lowest right corner, then a player must collect all discarded event cards, including the card just drawn, shuffle them again, and create a new draw deck. Also keep in mind that some strategy cards have black capitalized text on the bottom of the card that indicates how they modify certain events that one of these events, when one of these events is drawn. For example, loyalty. Likewise, some events indicate how they are modified by certain strategy cards, respectively. Campaign sequence. This is the last type of card. We have the campaign card. If the Carthaginian player draws the campaign card as part of an action, the campaign card is put aside and must be resolved at the end of that player's turn. If the Carthaginian player draws the campaign card at the end of their turn, the campaign card is resolved immediately. The campaign card is resolved in the following order, as listed on the card itself. First, the Carthaginian player sets the campaign card aside, reshuffles their discard pile back into the draw deck, and draws back up to their hand size. Then, secondly, they draw an event card and resolve its effects. Third, each player collects 1 silver per in-supply city they control. Following that, the next thing that happens, each player scores victory points for each in-supply neutral white locations, Syracuse and enemy locations they control. Next, the strategy card in the third position is discarded, and the remaining face-up strategy cards are shifted to the right, so that the 2 card is now on the 3 position and the 1 card is on the 2 position. Then we draw a new strategy card and place it in the 1 position. And the campaign card then is placed at the back of the bottom of the Carthaginian player draw deck, and the round token is advanced 1 space on the round track. It's then the Roman player's turn. The campaign card is removed from the Carthaginian player's deck in the instance of the game ending conditions met, prior to the Carthaginian player refilling their hand. And this is the last type of card we have in the game, so you know everything about the card's anatomy and purpose so far. Now, let's see the gameplay overview. Players, as we said, take alternating turns, placing and playing their cards to perform up to 2 actions each until either player achieves an automatic victory or game-ending conditions are met. The Roman player always goes first. The player's turn is broken like that. At the start of each turn, you must first check to see if you have won or lost a land combat. After that, you must perform 2 actions, except on the very first turn of the game, when both players may only perform 1 action each. Once you have completed your actions, if you have less than 5 cards into your hand, draw cards from your deck to bring your hand up to the standard size of 5 cards. As soon as your draw deck is exhausted, you must shuffle your discard pile and place it face down in the draw deck space of your player board. A player may not draw more cards than there are remaining in the draw deck when playing the senatorial support or magistrate cards, and in this case you do not reshuffle your discard pile. Instead, you only draw the remaining cards, which may include the campaign card. In that case, the Carthaginian player would finish their turn before resolving the campaign card, as explained earlier. Now, we have a numerous number of actions, player actions. Each turn, after checking to see if a land combat has been resolved, you must perform 2 actions plus any free actions you wish to perform. Each player performs only 1 action on their very first turn of the game, as mentioned earlier. Each action must be fully resolved before you perform your next action, and you can perform most actions twice. Some actions such as Pillage or Pass may only be selected once per turn from the player. There are some actions which are free actions. These do not count towards your 2 action limit, and you can perform at any time during your turn regardless of what other actions you perform, except that you cannot perform a free action at the resolution of a land combat or after drawing cards at the end of your turn. Most of the time, the cards that you play are played into your discard pile. If you play a card for a land combat, place that card in the appropriate card box of the board marked as land combat card. That means here's the Roman land combat card, and here's the Carthaginian combat card, if you have a combat here, or respectively on the top. So you will put it in the land combat card respectively, and if you put a card in a reserve on your player board, place the card in the appropriate card box to your player board, and in that case of land battles, the appropriate place will depend on whether you are the attacker or the defender. Again, just to show you the variety of actions, these are listed very nicely on this. Remember, we have a player aid which has both the card symbols, the reminder for the campaign sequence and game conditions and victory points supplied, what it means, okay, and useful reminders. And at the back there is a summary of all the actions of the game with icons and color coding. So the actions that you can perform twice are settle a location, develop a location, fortify a location, reinforce a land combat, build a warship, sea move, engage enemy fleet, cavalry raid, take money, trader, merchant, bribery, buy an empire card, discard cards, reserve a card, cycle strategy cards. These can be performed twice. Okay? The ones that you can be performed only once, they're in the middle column. Attack a location, pillage, return a card to the empire deck, buy a strategy card, discard a strategy card, or pass. If you perform any of those actions in the middle, you cannot perform them twice in the same turn. And as a free action, you have the column to the right, which includes withdraw from a siege, add leader to land and naval combat, and retrieve cards from your reserve. Okay, so everything is nicely summarized here, as you can see, and this is captures all the available actions in the game. Now, this is just a summary, so now we need to go and explain how these actions work in practice. First action is settle a location. So this action allows player to place a town token in an uncontrolled location, and the player must first play a location card that connects to that location that is to be settled. So each location card has a list of locations that connects to. So for example, you see each location card has a list of connections, as you can see. Each location card has a list of locations that it connects to, and the types of connections are different. Again, if you have white, that means sea route connection. If it has black line, that means land connection. It can have you know, the straits dotted line, which is land connection over the Straits of Messana, or it could be a land connection over rough road like this one, which has gray dotted line, or this one, okay, or land connection which has just this line. In any case, the player must first of all they must play the location card, then the player must play a second and possibly third card to pay its transport cost. So land connection over regular road can be spent with just a card with that symbol. Land connection over rough road, this one, or straits, you have to pay with any 2 cards with that symbol again. And you can have also sea connection, which can be paid by cards with that symbol. It's important not to forget to take the new settle location card, okay? And also, if the location that it's to be settled, it's marked with 2 circles, like let's say in this case Agrigentum here, that means that you also need to pay a card with this symbol to settle the card. So let's see an example. Let's see that the Carthaginian player wishes to settle Agrigentum, as we said before. To do so, the player starts and play the Clupia location, so this location, okay, because it links to the location of interest, which is Agrigentum. So this is the first card that they play. Then they need to pay, so since it has a C connection to Agrigentum, okay, that means that the player must play a card with the C symbol, so they play Hippo Acra, okay, so they play it, so they make the C connection symbol required, and then since Agrigentum is a location with 2 circles, the player must also play a card with this symbol, so they also play a Carthago card from their hand. So by playing all these 3 cards, the player is able to settle Agrigentum by placing a town token there, okay, and what they need to do next is they need to take from the set aside cards, because this was not controlled at the beginning, the respective card, and add it to the cards that they have. They acquired this new location card. Keep in mind that you may not settle a location using a C connection if its C zone is enemy controlled. That means if for this situation we had this card, this here, we wouldn't be able to play to pay for this symbol, because it will be controlled from the enemy, okay, so keep that in mind also. Right, so this is how settle location works, very straightforward, and this is how you get to add more town tokens on the board. Another action a player can do is they can develop a location, as you can see. So a town token in a location, let's say for example in Hippo Acra there, represents a town, okay, and a city in a location represents a city, like for example in Carthago. You can develop a location. You must first have a town token in the location. So let's say I want to develop Hippo Acra, I need to have a town token there. You must first have a town token in the location, and the location must be in supply. So if that's the case, then the conditions are met and you can perform an action to play a location card that matches the desired location. Let's say, so I play Hippo Acra from my hand, okay, because I want to develop Hippo Acra. And then I need to play a second card from my hand with, again, the settle icon. But I'm not settling this time, I'm developing, to pay for the development. Then the token is returned to the player's supply, and it is replaced by a city token. The town token is replaced by a larger city token. A location with a city grants 2 benefits during the game: 1 silver when resolving the campaign card, and 1 victory point in the end of the game. It's important that only locations with 2 circles may be developed into the city, so exactly what I showed you now, it's viable because it has 2 circles. But I wouldn't be able to develop Hippo Regius into a city because it has a single circle, okay? So only locations with 2 circles beneath are eligible to be developed into cities from towns. So none of those can become cities. This could become a city respectively. Next action is fortify a location, and this is also described here. That's a fortify a location. In order to fortify a location, the player must play a fortification card. This card starts in the game in the Empire deck. This is a fortification card in the Empire deck of the Roman player. It says fortification on top. So they must play this card and the location card for the desired location to be fortified and pay 3 silver. The player then plays a fortification token to encircle the city token or town token in the desired location. A location can only have one fortification token on it, and it's important to note that this action cannot be selected if any of the available fortification tokens are already, all of them are already on the map. So let's say a player plays this card, the fortification card, they also pay 3 silver, and they also play a city or town location. This could be any of the available one they have and they want by the strategy, so they can do it in Cosa or they can do it in Roma, depending on what they want. Okay, they need to play the respective card, location card for Roma in this case, pay the 3 silver and play the fortification card. If they do all of these, they are, and there is an available fortification token in the supply, they can of course add it by fortifying that location. So what are the effects of fortifications? Why you should fortify a location, you may ask. A fortified location starts a battle with 2 additional strength points. These locations are also immune to cavalry raids and pillage. Fortifications are also negatively affect certain units in the battle. These effects are to be explained next to the cards in which the effects are applied, and the fortification token cannot be added to a location where a battle is taking place. Okay, so you need to have already fortified that location in advance. Thematically, you cannot start building walls once the battle has begun. Another action that you can do is that you can of course attack a location, and you follow the sequence for attacking a location. So when you attack a location, you automatically start a land combat. It's important to know that a land combat is an unarmed versus an unfortified location, which is defined as a battle, whereas a land combat versus a fortified location, meaning with city walls, it's defined as a siege. To start a land combat, a location card must be played that connects to the target location. Then cards must be played to pay the necessary transport costs, similar to settling a location. And finally, a card must be played that has at least one of the sword symbols on it. The location card used to launch the attack is played on the attacker's discard pile. And keep in mind that if the attacker is Roman, they place the card in the Roman land combat card space on the board, which is here. If the attacker is a Carthaginian, they place the card in the Carthaginian land combat card space on the board, which is here, on the bottom left. Briefly to show you again, remember, this is on, we have the spot for the Carthaginian land combat card, and it's also written on the spot itself. While for the Roman land combat card, it's with a red border, and it's also listed on the top right side of the map board. The attacker plays the battle round token, red for Rome and blue for Carthage, pointing near the location that has been attacked with the 1 round indicator facing up, signifying which round of the battle it is and where the battle is located. For example, if the Roman player would attack, they will take this token, they would rotate it so that it points out to number 1, since it's the first one, and they will point it towards the location where they are attacking to. In this case, let's say they wanted to attack to Syracuse, for example. They would do it somehow like that. The battle strength token is now adjusted according to the initial strength of both sides. Players use their own battle strength track. If you are the Roman player, then you would use a Roman battle track for battles in which you are the attacker, and that would be on the top side of the board over here. That is for the Roman player, and on the bottom side of the map it's for the Carthaginian player. This is over here. Again, not to be confused with the track above. This is the Pillage track. Okay, so the respective battle strength track has both red and blue colors, and the middle ones, 0 and 1, are colorless. Okay, so the bottom one belongs to the Carthaginian player, and the top one, as I've shown you before, belongs to the Roman player. To set the initial strengths, we perform the following steps. First, we place the battle strength token in the 1 space or in favor of the defender. So every location has an intrinsic defense strength of 1 by default. So that would mean that in this case, if we were the Roman player and we're attacking towards Syracuse, we'd place the battle token on the battle track on the number 1 for the defender. Okay, the red side on the right is for the attacker, for the Romans, and they're using their own battle strength track. Moving forward, if there is a fortification token in the location where we are attacking to, meaning the target, then we would move the token 2 additional spaces in the defender's favor. That would mean towards this side, okay, if it has fortification. If not, it would still be at 1 in favor of the defender. If there is a defensive bonus supply point token next to the title, like this one, you know, the sword pointing upwards with a square in the background, okay, then in that case, if we had such a token next to the location, we move the token 1 space in the defender's favor again, okay. So these are bonuses for the defender. So this is the defender's initial strength from all these 3 factors. Now you move the token a number of spaces in favor of the attacker according to the strength of the card that was initially used in the attack. For example, the number of swords symbols on the card. The battle track length is finite and can never exceed its values printed on the track. Okay, so keep that also in mind, which is different depending on if you're a Roman attacker or if you're a Carthaginian attacker. Let's see a quick example. Let's say Sicily zone is uncontrolled, so the Roman player decides to attack Syracuse. Okay, so they want to launch an attack towards Syracuse. They play the Messana card, so they will start by playing, let's say, the Messana card, okay, because from Messana, as you can see, they have this white line which connects to Syracuse, okay, so they initiate by playing this card. Let me place it there. Then the next thing that they would do, following that, they will need to pay for the transportation of their troops. It's connected by sea, so they will need to play a card with the ship symbol in order to transport the card, the attack, the units, whatever, via sea towards the destination. So 1 to connect to the location, and then pay with the symbols to transport the attack. And then they would attack. They would need to have to play a card with at least 1 sword. Let's say they play this card with 2 swords in this case, okay. That means they would go into a battle, and their strength would be modified for the attacker by 2 symbols because of the 2 swords of the card that they played, okay. At least this is how the battle is going to start. They would place, of course, the battle token indicating round 1 next to the Syracuse, pointing with 1, okay. This is going to be moved if it's a 2nd round, 3rd round or 4th round, and then it will be removed for the outcome of the battle. If it is a siege, we proceed to a 5th round and 6th round, and then we remove, okay. So let's say also to show the full example now, Syracuse has an intrinsic defense of 1, like all destinations, all locations. However, it also has the defense bonus supply point, as you can see here. So that means 1 plus 1, 2. So if they would start from 0, they would move 1 to the left for their defense, and then plus 1 for the defense bonus supply point that they have, the icon with the sword, okay. Then the Roman player would adjust this by pulling the token 2 spaces to the right to reflect the 2 swords, 1 for each sword that they played. So they would place it back to the right 2 spaces, so it would reach 0, okay, the 0 space. Keep in mind that the player may not initiate more than a single battle at any time, but may be involved in a simultaneous battle that an opponent initiated, and also a player may not attack or enforce a location by sea connection if the sea zone is enemy controlled. However, a player can still attack it using a land connection, no problem there, if it's possible. So how we resolve the battle? Resolving a land battle. When the battle is underway, at the start of each turn, the player must check the battle tracks to see whether or not the battle ends. Okay, so would take their focus here on the battle track, where the battle is linked with, to see if the battle ends. Battles can end because a player has sufficient strength to win immediately, or the maximum number of battle rounds have elapsed, 4, if it's not a siege, or one of the players withdraws from it during their turn. So what do we mean when a player has sufficient strength to win immediately? You can see a player would win if they manage to pull it towards their color. In this case, the color is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in red for the red player. 0 and 1 are neutral colors, and then we have from the left side 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with blue colors. Okay, so it's like a tug of war, push and pull. So when you start the battle, in this case by adjusting it so that it goes to 0, no one is winning. Okay, so in future turn, if they would reinforce, etc, 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 and you will see that they will manage to get it towards the side, their side, their winning side, their color side. That means that at the start of the next turn, if they manage to keep it there, because they're you know, their counter partner, the opponent, they didn't reply, so they can pull it back, that means that they would win. Okay, the battle is won by the player when the battle strength token is on their side of the battle track at the start of their player turn, or after the maximum number of battle rounds have elapsed, by moving this indicator each time. If the battle did not end with victory for either side at the start of the attacker's turn, the battle round is increased by 1. So let's say the defender plays, okay, then it's back to the Roman player. At the start of their turn, they would turn it 1 clockwise to the next ascending number, so from 1 to 2. If they didn't manage to win the battle. The fourth round of the battle is the last round, as you can see. That means that when the attacker starts their turn and the token already indicates 4, instead of rotating it in more, the battle ends immediately. The token is removed and the battle outcome is decided. The same applies to sieges. However, a siege lasts 6 rounds, so it would go also to 5, then to 6, and if then the next round comes and it's not concluded, then it's removed, and then we calculate the result, if it is a win, a loss, or a draw, okay, for the involved parties. So the outcome of the battle can be threefold, as I said. The attacker is a winner, the defender is a winner, or there is a draw. Let's say what happens if winning as the attacker. You remove the defender's town or city token from the location attacked and keep it. They are worth victory points at the end of the game by placing it next to your player board. You remove any fortification token in the location they may have and return to the general supply. And if the attack location is a 1 circle location, meaning 1 circle location, then the winning player may immediately place a town token in that location. If it is a 2 city location and the winning player would like to settle the location, they may also have to pay a card with the head symbol in order to be able to settle, to be able to place a town token in that location, similarly like a settling. If a town token is placed on the location, when the defender must give the attacker that location card and place it on top of their discard pile, this does not count as an action. And if the card was in the defender's draw deck, reshuffle the draw deck afterwards and make a new pile. If it goes in the defender's reserve, there is no silver cost to remove it. You're never forced to settle a location when your battle is won, it's always optional. But if not settled, the location remains uncontrolled and the defender retains the location card, although it's not treated as it's treated as if it were out of supply moving forward. And if your opponent settles the location later in the game, the corresponding location card must go immediately handed over. What happens if you win as the defender? If let's say in this case you have an attack and then Roman attacks and then the defender, Carthaginian player, manages to win. The defender wins the battle and retains control of the location. That's the simple thing that happens. And when we have draws at the start of a turn, if the maximum number of battles has elapsed and we are in the middle with no colors, so 0 on 1, okay, but for this to happen needs to be at the start of the last round, okay, the maximum number of battle rounds, so from 4 moving to 5th, okay, if it's a normal lat battle, and neither side has won the battle, then the battle ends in draw and defender retains control of the location. Nothing else happens. What about prestige? The winner of the battle, whether it's the defender or the attacker, gains 1 prestige by moving the tracker, the token, on the prestige on the board by 1 on the prestige track. Let me show you. If the Roman managed to make a winning, with the winner, they would move it by 1 on their prestige track. This goes all the way up to 9 for a maximum of 9 prestige points, which are converted in victory points at the end of the game. But keep in mind that if there is a draw, another player receives prestige. Battle losses and cavalry superiority. The losing player must return a non-location card that was involved in the battle back to the Empire deck. If the losing player had only location cards in their battle, then no card is lost. For sieges, the losing player selects a card that is lost. For battles, if the winning player finishes the battle with more cavalry strength points, then he selects which card to lost, otherwise the losing player selects. If the battle resulted in a draw, they both lose a card of their choice from their cards and that were involved in the battle, of course, and cavalry superiority is ignored in the event of a draw. Neither the Roman dictator card nor the Carthaginian mercenary general card can be taken as a loss. The infantry card that is part of the Roman initial draw deck can be taken though as a loss. So this is how attack works. Another action that you can do is that you can reinforce a land combat. And that's something that you want to do many times, for example, based on strategy, and it's covered here, reinforce a land combat. Now, to increase your strength in a land battle, whether as an attacker or defender, you play a card that has one or more military symbols on it. A military symbol is either a sword, or in the case of coastal location, a ship. Meaning, you can play either this icon or, for example, this icon. Okay. So a military symbol, again, it's as I said, a sword, or for coastal locations a ship. But to increase the battle strength token, that will do it a number of spaces towards your side's color equal to the number of military symbols on the card. If there are two battles in progress, the player may choose which one the card is used for. The card played must be placed on the board in the corresponding land combat space. If the Romans are attackers, they place the card in the Roman land combat card, space marked with a red outline. If the Romans are the defenders, they place it on the Roman land combat card, marked with a blue outline. This includes location cards that you play for their military strength. You can only reinforce locations that you can trace a friendly supply point to, so supply plays again a very vital part in the equation. A fortification card can be used to reinforce a battle, but only for the defending player. When players play this card, they increase their strength by 1. A card with a ship symbol has a military strength of 1 if it is used in a combat that occurs in a coastal location and it's considered a military symbol for purposes of combat. A player may not reinforce coastal location with ship symbols if its sea zone is enemy controlled. And if a location card has both a ship and a sword symbol, the player may only use one of those, not both. So if it has both of them, you will not get +2, you will get only 1. It doesn't matter for the majority of the situations which ones you use. However, the player must choose to use a sword symbol instead of the ship symbol if the location sea zones is enemy controlled. Okay, and this is a very common action you will be doing for the remaining of the rounds when the battles occur, okay, in trying to reinforce a land battle in order to push and pull the tug of war element so that you can have it towards your color, your side at the beginning of the next turn, so that you can win the battle. Another quick thing I want to mention, which also is important for enforcing and all these concepts of the attacking, it's the combined arms. If a player has a light infantry card with this symbol, plus a heavy infantry card with this symbol, plus a cavalry card with this symbol, so all three of them, okay, that means that they will receive a +1 strength bonus to that battle. The bonus is applied as soon as the third card that matches the criteria is played, and this bonus only applies to battles, not sieges, and may only be applied once per battle. And it will be a useful bonus if you manage to get all three symbols in a sequence, in a card play. What about losing a location during land combat? It is possible that a location card committed to a battle is then later lost during the battle. If this occurs when the location card is removed from the battle and put into your opponent's discard pile, however, it does not affect the battle already in progress, so you do not lose any strength points on the battle track. Okay, so these are the basic concepts for attacking and reinforcing a land battle. I just want to mention quickly also withdrawing from a siege, which is a free action. As a free action, the player may choose to withdraw from a siege. The result of this action is the same as if the player lost the siege. The player loses a non-location card from the cards in the land combat card space. The remaining cards are placed into the discard pile, and the opponent gains 1 prestige point and places the card from this land combat card space into the discard pile. You may not withdraw from a siege in the same turn you began the siege, of course. So let's move to the next actions. Next action I want to mention is to build a warship. So you need to play a card with this symbol and pay 3 silver in order to do so. This action can be performed regardless if the fleet is at sea or at your home port. However, you may not build a warship in the same turn in which you engage enemy fleet. Both players are limited to the maximum of 8 warships, so if I do that, I just gain 1 warship. So I would be progressing up towards this warship track with more warships being built through the course of the game. Another action I want to talk about is sea move. Once your fleet contains 1 or more warships on the tracks I just shown you before, you may move between sea zones. A player may move the fleet token from his home port, which is here, to its connected sea zone with 1 sea move action, okay, or from its current sea zone to an adjacent sea zone, crossing the borders from 1 sea zone to the adjacent one. You can never enter your opponent's home port, okay, and if your fleet is ever eliminated as a result of your combat or an event, then your fleet token is immediately returned to your home port automatically. So keep that in mind. The presence of an enemy fleet does not prevent the fleet from leaving or entering a sea zone, meaning if we were like that, in the same sea zone, I would still be able to move and come here, okay? The Roman fleet is not preventing the Carthaginian fleet token to move. There is no interception in this game, however, a player may never enter an enemy's home port, okay? So keep that in mind. Engage enemy fleet. A player may attack an enemy fleet if his fleet is in the same sea zone. This action requires a player to play a card with the ship symbol, this symbol here. The player cannot engage enemy fleet if they build a warship earlier the same turn. It needs to be in a future turn. And that sequence begins a naval combat. Each player simultaneously rolls a die for every warship in their fleet, as indicated on the warship track. Okay, so again, every player will consult their warship track. In this case, for the Roman player it's 4, and let's say for the Carthaginian player it's 2, which would mean the Roman player would roll 4 dice, while the Carthaginian player would roll 2 dice. Okay. Also important that for every 5 or 6 that the player rolls, 1 enemy warship is sunk. Whoever sinks the most enemy warships wins the battle and gains 1 prestige point. If there is a tie or there are no surviving warships for either player, then it's a draw. Another player receives a prestige point, similarly like with the draw in the land combat. If a fleet is destroyed, you return the fleet token to its home port as we've seen before. Otherwise, the loser of the naval combat must choose to either retreat his fleet to an adjacent sea zone that contains a friendly coastal location or send to its home port, regardless of whether or not it's adjacent. If the naval combat was a draw, then neither player is forced to retreat, though the defending player has the option to do so. Another thing that I want to mention, which is important, is the Corvus Strategy Card. Let me show you how this looks. That's this card over here. So let me just place it here. So for if the Roman player possesses a Corvus Strategy Card, any infantry cards from the reserve may be committed to the naval combat at no cost, up to a maximum of 1 infantry card per warship. The intention to include infantry in the naval combat and the quantity must be announced after leader cards have been added, but before any dice are rolled, and you set any committed infantry cards to the side as a reminder. The Roman player then rolls an additional die for each infantry card that they was committed to the naval combat. Light infantry cards hit on a 5 higher and heavy infantry cards on a 3 or higher, and you roll the dice for each type of infantry, light or heavy, separately. If the Roman player committed at least 1 infantry card and wins the naval combat, then 1 enemy warship is considered captured. Immediately add 1 free warship to the Roman fleet, and if the Roman player does not have enough warship remaining at the end of the naval battle to carry the infantry cards, Then, for example, if there are fewer Roman warships remaining than there are infantry cards that were committed to the battle, then the excess infantry cards are eliminated and those cards are returned to the Rome's Empire deck. Any remaining infantry is sent to the Roman player's discard pile, and that would conclude the special case where the Corpus card is played. Another action you can do is and it's also captured on the play rate, is you can add leader to land and naval combat. Leaders in land combat, so leader cards in your hand may be added to the land combat, and it's a free action and may be done by both players. The leader immediately adds its strength to the battle. The card played must be played on the board in the corresponding land combat space. And for leaders in naval combat, leader cards in your hand may be added to naval combat. This again is a free action and may be done by both players similarly. The attacker announces whether or not leader cards will be added to the battle first and then the defender. And each leader rolls 1 die per sword symbol on the leader cards and hits on a roll of 4, 5 or 6, except for the Roman Praetor, which hits on a roll of 5 or 6. You roll this die separately from the dice rolled for warships. Okay, again, let me show you. This is an example of a leader card, and the purpose for this is to add it for bringing the opportunity to increase your damages, okay, and using the rolls from the dice. After a naval combat, if the dictator and mercenary general cards were played, like for example one of your cards with leaders said dictator or mercenary general cards, then they are returned to that player's empire deck. Any other type of leader card that was committed to a naval combat is sent to the discard pile. However, if an entire fleet is destroyed, then that player returns all leader cards committed to the naval combat to the empire deck instead. Another action a player can take is the Cavalry Raid, and this is captured here on this section. And this is a raid icon. So a player may use a Cavalry Raid action to capture an enemy town token or city token from an enemy control location without attempting to attack it. To launch a Cavalry Raid, the player plays 1 or more cards with the raid icon, which is this one, okay, the one with the red icon. That's the raid action, a Cavalry Raid action, and the player can play a single card, or you can play more than 1 card. Playing a single card allows the player to raid a location that has direct line connection to a location that is under the player's control. Each additional raid cavalry icon from additional cards that can be played increases the range by 1 land connection. For example, if 2 of those cards are played, 2 of those symbols from 2 different cards, that means that the raided location can be up to 2 land connections away. It's important to know that the player does not play location cards to launch a cavalry raid, nor does the player need to play a transport, either horse or a ship symbol, to transport any troops. Okay, you just play directly the cavalry raid card. Cavalry raid cards are unaffected by rough road land connections or by defense point supply point. This one, the defense bonus supply point, this icon. That some locations have. However, the player cannot raid across the Straits of Messana, so raiding across the Straits of Messana is not possible. A player can raid beyond the location that contains an enemy town or city tokens. However, the player cannot raid into or through a location that has a fortification token on it. Also, the player may not raid into, from or through a location where a land battle is taking place, or from a location that is not in supply, which is thematic and makes sense. Blocking the cavalry raid. The opposing player has the opportunity to block a cavalry raid by playing a card from their hand that either has the block a cavalry raid icon, which is this one. So replying to this icon, a player can play a card with the gray icon, which is the respective one for blocking the cavalry raid, or by playing the location card for the location that is being raided. If that location is in supply, the card with this symbol, the blocking symbol, is used to block the raid, and then it's discarded, placed in the discard pile. Okay, your opponent can block a raid against an out of supply location, but cannot use the location card to do it. If the raid is not blocked, then the raiding player takes the town token or city token from the raided location and places it next to the player board. However, the raiding player does not take the location card. The raiding player will score victory points at the end of the game for this token, and if a city token is taken from the location, then the opponent must replace it with a town token from their supply. If the opposing player does not have a town token available to replace the city token, then the location becomes uncontrolled. In the likely event that the Roma or Carthago becomes uncontrolled as a result of a raid, the game is not automatically won. However, a player would win by taking a settle location action in the opposing player's uncontrolled capital at a later point in the game, unless the opposing player settles it first again and reclaims it. Next action we can have is a pillage action. If your fleet in a sea zone, you may play a card with the ship symbol, again, this one, okay, to pillage an adjacent enemy control coastal location, or pillage an enemy control coastal location in an adjacent sea zone by playing a second card, again with the ship symbol. If successful, the player takes a number of silver from the opponent equal to half the number of warships in their supply fleet, rounded down. If the opponent does not have enough money, take the difference from the general supply. If the location is in supply, then the opponent may block a pillage action by playing a card of the location being the target of the pillage action, a fortification card, or the triremes card. The latter two cards have a two spears crossing symbol, which is this one, okay, this symbol here, as a reminder. If the location is out of supply, then the opponent may block a pillage action with only fortification or a triremes card. A player may not pillage a location that is fortified or that has an enemy fleet in its sea zone or in which land combat is currently being fought. A player may pillage a location in a sea zone that is adjacent to the sea zone that contains their fleet and an enemy fleet. If a player successfully pillages the opponent's location, move the pillage token one space to the right of the pillage track. Meaning, like that. A player may pillage a location in a sea zone, as I said, which is adjacent to the sea zone that contains their fleet and enemy fleet. And once pillaging locations, you will be moving up on this track. So when the token reaches the second spot, you see, or the fourth, or the 6th, or even the 8th, you see there is an icon above those spots on the pillage track. Immediately subtract the indicated number of victory points from the opponent's score. So you force the opponent to lose. In this case, if you pillage them 8 times, you force them to lose 4 victory points, which, ouch, it hurts. If the pillage token reaches 8, then reset the token back to the 0 space, so you can start increasing your pillage again, if so, depending on your actions. Then we have the take money action. The player may play a location card and take a number of silver from the general supply equal to the value indicated on the money symbol icon, in this case 2 silver. So if I play this card, I will take money, exactly 2 silver as indicated on the card. Very simple and straightforward. Next we have the trader action. A player may play a card with a ship symbol, like this one here. So they may play one of these cards followed by playing 1 or 2 location cards that have a silver value icon on them. So for example, play a card with a ship icon and then followed by 1 or more cards with the silver icon value on the card. Then you take the general from the general supply the total amount of silver indicated on the played location card. Okay, so either 1 or 2 location cards, and you can take the total sum of silver coin like that through trading purposes and means, essentially. Next we have the merchant action. The player may play the merchant card, which is this one from their prior deck. They need to have it in order to play it. Okay, and as the card says, discarding a number of cards that have the vase symbol on it. 1 or 2 cards can be played with the vase symbol following the merchant card, and for each of those you will gain 2 silver from the general supply, in this case 2 plus 2, 4, through the merchant. Bribery. A successful bribery can reduce your opponent's available units, which could be either light infantry, heavy infantry, or cavalry, depending on the symbol. So any of those 3 symbols. So a bribery can reduce the available unit cards for play, a player plays a card that has a symbol with this icon beneath the type of the unit. Okay, so once you play one card with this symbol and pay 1 silver, the opponent may block. You're trying to use bribery, obviously. The opponent may block this by blocking a bribery. If a bribery is not blocked, then the opponent must select a mercenary unit card marked with the red symbol under the card unit type symbol from their hand, or reserve and return it to the respective empire deck. Cards that are already engaged in a battle are not subject to bribery, and if your opponent does not have a card that can be bribed and proves it by revealing the cards in their hand, then the action is wasted. Let me explain this with an example to make it simple. So let's say the Carthaginian player may play this card, which has a red icon to enable bribery. Okay, then the Roman player, if they do not have any cards on their hand to prevent this, they must remove from their hand or reserve one card with this symbol under their unit type. Okay, and if they have 2 cards on their, with this symbol, then they decide which one they want to remove. If they only have one, they just go with the one that they have. Okay, and this will be removed into the empire deck. How do you block bribery? When an opponent activates a bribery action, you may block it by playing a card which has the opposite, the gray circle. So this icon is blocked by this icon from the respective opponent's card deck. The blocking card must be played from your hand, not from the reserve or a card currently used in battle, and the card used to block is placed on your discard pile. Next action is buy an empire card. The player may select an empire card from their available empire cards, pay the cost, the card's cost if any, and place it on their discard pile. The upper right corner of the card will indicate the cost in silver to be paid. The player can never take a card with a border of the opponent's color. The player may buy control location cards that were sent to the empire deck even if out of supply. So for example, you will pick up, if you would do by this action, you will pick up your empire deck. Okay, you will select what you want. In this case, let's say I want to buy the siege engine. I will pay 8 silver and I will be able to take this card and use it. Okay, some heavy infantry empire cards have a manpower cost represented by the head symbol on the card in addition to its silver cost. Buying such card requires you to discard the card with a head symbol from your hand, otherwise the card may not be purchased. Okay, let me show you an example. For example, this one requires both silver and playing a card with the head symbol from your hand in order to buy these specific cards. And you have of course access to the whole empire deck when you select the option to buy a card from it respectively. We have the emergency levy when buying infantry, light cavalry, light infantry, heavy infantry, or cavalry, or leaders. Card from your empire deck or the neutral empire deck, you may pay double its silver cost to place the card on top of your draw deck instead of putting it in the discard pile. Other types of cards such as senatorial support, fortification, siege engine, etc. cannot be purchased in this manner. Now let's see some final actions. To conclude all the available actions of the game, you can discard cards. The player may discard one or more cards from their hand. Discarded cards are placed in the player's discard pile. The cost in silver to discard cards is progressive, starting with 0 silver for the first card and increasing by 1 silver for each additional card, and so on. Discarding 3 cards costs 3 silver, 0 plus 1 plus 2 and so on. Another action is to return a card to empire deck. The player may put a card from their hand into the empire deck. If a location card is selected, then return the card to your empire deck if you control that location, or into a neutral empire card deck if the location is uncontrolled. Either player can buy neutral empire cards that are returned to the empire deck. There is a restriction though. This action may only be selected once per turn. The Roma red and Carthago blue location cards can never be returned to the empire deck, of course. Another action is to reserve a card, and that's why we have a reserve spot on our player board, on the right section of our player board. Your reserve gives you the flexibility to place cards to the side without bury them into your discard pile or permanently removing them so that they can be easily retrieved later when they may be more useful. Select any card from your hand, including a location, and place it up in the reserve box on your player board, on the right side of your player board. The player reserve can only hold up to 5 cards. Let's see how the reserve section looks. Here's your reserve, and it says max 5 cards, obviously. Okay. So cards in your reserve are placed face up and are public information unless playing with an optional hidden reserve rule option. So that's the reserve. The remaining of the actions include retrieve cards from your reserve. As a free action, the player may retrieve the cards in the reserve and place them back into their hand. All cards in the reserve must be retrieved, and the player must pay 1 silver for each retrieved card. If you cannot pay for all cards, then you cannot perform this action. Another action you can have is cycle strategy cards. Discard 1, 2 or 3 strategy cards from the top. From there you can cycle them. However, you must pay 1 silver to discard the card in the 2 position, and additionally 2 silver to discard the card in the 1st position. You shift any remaining cards, face-up cards to the right, and draw new strategy cards for each card that was discarded, placing them right to left on the strategy cards display. Then you reshuffle the discarded strategy cards the moment they are returned into the deck. It's important to know that if you are cycling more than 1 strategy card, you must cycle them in right to left order. Always in that order. The reason for doing so is because none of the strategy cards offered there are useful for you, and you want to cycle them so that you have other options. Next action is to buy a strategy card, of course. The player selects 1 available strategy card from the display, the 3 available, and pays the card's cost. The upper right corner of the card will indicate the cost in silver to be paid. Let's see an example. This one has a cost of 4. Okay. After purchasing a card, and again keep in mind that a strategy card in the 1st position costs 2 additional silver, a card in the 2 position costs 1 additional silver, and a card in the 3 position costs no additional silver. You place this card face up in your player board in the appropriate box, because you only have 1 strategy card available at any given time. If you had one, you need to discard. After purchasing a card, shift the remaining strategy cards to the right, draw a new card and place it in the 1st position. Reshuffle the discarded strategy cards, if there are no remaining strategy cards, into the deck, and then you create a new deck. Certain strategy cards can only be purchased by specific empire, and again the purple ones can be purchased by both Carthaginian and Roman, the red ones from Roman, and the blue ones, banners, I mean, from Carthaginians only. Next thing you can do as an action is you can discard a strategy card. You may discard your strategy card if you have one in play. You must perform this action before purchasing a new strategy card. For example, changing your strategy card requires 2 actions in total. And the last action you have is pass. A player may do nothing during the turn to take 1 silver. A player cannot pass more than once in the same turn. So there you have it. This is everything you need to know about how to play hands in the sea. These are all the details, the rules and the actions explained. Just to mention that the game comes with an expansion and optional rules. There is the fate token, the red token, red from one side and blue from the other, we've seen next to the event discard pile. A fate token is included in the game and neither player starts with it. However, the first time you are negatively affected by an event or your opponent is the beneficiary of a positive event, you take possession of the token. As long as you possess the fate token, all future event rolls are modified by 1 in your favor. And if while in possession of the token your opponent is stricken by a negative event or you are the beneficiary of a positive event, then you set aside the token, regardless of whether it's not the modifier actually helped you, and you or your opponent could later acquire the fate token, perhaps multiple times, depending on how the events fall. The rules for the modifier are the same as the Devotio strategy card and are cumulative with that card. In other words, if you have both the Devotio card and the fate token, events could be modified by 2 in your favor. There are also the Fortuna expansion rules. This is a mini expansion that adds different set of strategy cards to be used in conjunction with the strategy cards maintenance rule. The rule adds a cumulative maintenance to cost to strategy cards that make them more difficult to hang on for longer periods of time. There are also 5 alternate event cards in the mini expansion that players may be using instead of their deadlier originals. The expansion rules are optional and must be agreed in advance from both players to be used. And just for you to know that there are also some additional mini expansions and ways of enriching the game beyond their core rules that they have. So there you have it. This is everything you need to know on how to play hands in the sea. So let's meet back up. So there you have it. This is everything you need to know on how to play the game. Now, it could be that you have a very good understanding of how the game plays because you have played one of the earlier versions. For me, it was the first, so my opinion is fully based on what I have done and tried from this prototype. I hadn't had the chance to play the game. I've played a few Acres of Snow, which as the game already claims for itself, it's inspired from that game, so I can understand a lot of the common ground in terms of thinking and way of working. But overall, my impression is fully on this game and from this version, so I'd like to say straight ahead that it was a very pleasant experience. I think it's a very interesting, tense game between two players. I like the card playing in the game. I really enjoyed how you can use the card to launch attacks from a location, because it links to several locations, either by land or by sea or by straits, etc. And then you need to follow up by paying with cards for movement of the troops. So it felt like you know, war, it was difficult at that era. It was difficult to execute, to make it happen, to materialize it because of the means. You know, you couldn't just ride an airplane or a car or, I don't know, some super military vehicle and go very fast to one side to the other. So it was an effort to move, it was an effort to attack, it had the cost, it had difficulty. Of course, the end game was beneficial for the victor, as always, but I think this game really manages to give you this difficulty of war, not in terms of, you know, having it difficult to make wars. You can attack a lot of the time in the game, but you need to time it correctly so you can link the correct card with the correct payments, with the correct you know, military icon strengths symbols, so that you can have an efficient attack. So I also like the brilliant idea. I wish more games were doing that, of the battle marker. When you launch an attack, it starts from the first round, so you point, it points 1, and then you check for victory at the beginning of every next turn of yours. If this tug of war was pulled with the actions towards you and stays towards you in the scoring area for your side, or your opponent manages to pull it back either neutral or in their side, so they would win if the game comes back to them on a future turn. Very brilliant, very tense, and very, I think, thematic way. And also I think it links very nicely with the way that the wars were not you know, were not won over a single day, at least at that era. You know, they took time to prepare, they took time to execute, to transport troops and military units, and then wars used to take a lot of time. And it clicks with you know, with the ancient world, with the way of doing things, and with the technology available back then. So thematically, it really works nice. I also really enjoyed the way of the fast gameplay between the players. So you always have you know, a couple of actions to do. So you have 2 actions to do and several free actions you can do. So they are linked heavily with your cards. So you always have cards. You can also put cards on your reserve, so you can time them correctly. And this is felt nice because it's not just a random deck builder. You know, because sometimes you can have the cards you want and have a fantastic execution during your turn, but sometimes you may wait for the specific card and it spoils your plans. In this game you can plan really well, because you can put the cards in your reserve up to a maximum of 5, and if you have enough coins to recall them, then on the right time you can boom, use them and make what you had in plan as a long strategy attack or assault or whatever moving forward. There are a lot of different things in the game, a lot of actions. The game comes with 2 player aids, which are very helpful and informative, but at least for me, after a couple of plays, I think it becomes very trivial. You know, you get used to the actions. You get some actions are used more than others, of course, but also the options that you have are very clear and very easily remembered. Overall, a fantastic gaming experience, really tense, really thematic. I think true to its value, to its purpose, to its you know, chronology and theme, and what the game was about. I really enjoyed the deck building aspect of the game. I really enjoyed the strategy cards. I enjoyed the tug of war for the battles, the duration of the battles. We took more than 1 turn, the connectivity with the cards, the linking the cards together, and all the things really clicked very well in terms of mechanics and design, and gave a very pleasant, tense war game experience purely for 2 players. I just wish it had solo also, but as a 2-player, it's which is the only way it can be played. It's a fantastic game, and I really recommend it if you're into ancient war games. I think this is one you should definitely check it out. So many thanks for watching.